Breathe. Inhale. Breathe. Exhale. Breathe. Inhale. Breathe. Exhale. Breathe. Inhale. Breathe. Exhale. Breathe. Inhale. Breathe. Exhale. Every time you take a deep breath, breathe in from that goodness that is yours. Breathe in all that life force, all that light, all that power, aligning with what is true and good and loving. We breathe for those who couldn't. We stand here, alive, well, ready, open, aligned. When you inhale, breathe in all that goodness. And when you exhale, let all that go that doesn't serve you. We can breathe. Breathe.
Welcome, everybody. This is Conversations for Change, Art for the Movement. Welcome. Hopefully you are in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Mizan, co-creator of Spirit Works, joined with my partner.
Yeah, my name is Brother Sisway, co-creator of Spirit Works. We are a small Oakland-based organization. We focused on intergenerational wellness, creating experiences to transform lives. And, you know, tonight we have a very, very special experience planned for y'all, you know, especially given the state and the energy that we're in right now, especially in this nation. Just really how we can use these times and our power to really bring about change internally, interpersonally, and institutionally. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to pass it back to you. Just, you know, let's go ahead and get into this.
So the Art for the Movement is an initiative that came about, or not really an initiative, really a collaboration that came about after the uprisings and the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor here in Oakland, California, when the city exploded with art, with culture, with rebellion, with folks on the street ready and transforming and wanting to create change.
Mm-hmm.
And so we knew that it was time for folks to really take a look at what's happening in the world so that we can really transform. And so the art that was there, we were having conversations about this powerful messaging that came. And there was a collaboration that came together between the Oakland Museum, Oakland Art Murmur, the Black Cultural Zone, for which we are proud partners. And there was work and efforts to be able to really preserve and honor this art as part of this moment in time, this moment of this movement. And so our work has been a collaboration to really support that preservation efforts. We're currently working on and gathering a lot of the art that has come down from the walls. We are recognizing that much more has gone up, especially over the last 2 days, you know, and as we're right in the midst of, you know, this election season. And so there's a lot that's happening. And so we're going to continue these efforts to really support and honor the work and honor the art and honor the artists. Mm-hmm. So that is also why we are here, is because we have a panel of an amazing group of folks who have been doing art, culture keeping, and really transforming the narrative of Black folks in America and beyond, and really wanting to open space for these conversations. And so without further ado, we are going to pull in these amazing folks that we have here with us. We're going to go to one of the wonderful folks, Ashara Ikundayu. She is brilliant in many different ways, right? And so we are really honored to have you here, Blue Black woman, really honoring the work that you've done as artist as first responder, knowing that you are part of Oakland Impact Hub and your own gallery, and just really creating space for folks to be here and to claim space, to create space. And so we welcome you into this space, Ashara. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Come on.
Hey y'all, what up though? How you doing? It's so good to be here with you all.
Yes, thank
And
you.
this team of artists that you've invited to be here for this evening on this as we are spinning inside of the political movement in the United States. My intro, I guess, we're just going to take a few minutes each to talk a little bit about our work. And I want to, honor the land that I'm on. I'm an independent curator, cultural strategist. I live in Oakland, California. We know that that is the unceded territory of the Mwakma and Chichinyo Ohlone people. So I want to honor that land there in Oakland, that much of my work that I'm doing now is fueled from. But this evening, I'm coming to you from Denver, Colorado, which is the unceded land of the Arapaho and the Cheyenne Nation, and also wanting to honor the land here and the people and stand in solidarity with all Indigenous First Nation people around the world who bring their creative self to our communities and who fuel, the work that is what we call movement making, and that we know that the revolution is actually personal. And so it begins with each of us. And so just thanking you all for the invitation and just honoring our ancestors and my ancestors, my mothers, my fathers, my grandparents that came before us. What you're seeing on the screen right now is some of what has come through the portal of my practice, which is a curatorial practice. It means that I gather together artists across geography and discipline to wax on about art, joy, rage, creative spaces, and I center the stories and legacy and genius of Black women. So from a radical Black tradition, a tradition that is rooted in Black feminism and womanism, from a tradition that is rooted in mama knowledge and earth knowledge, as a permaculture designer and as a social entrepreneur. My work looks a lot of different ways at a lot of different times. So, I'm going to drop into the YouTube just a link that folks can check out, Blatant. And so since the murder of George Floyd, I've been able to build out the idea of artist as first responder, which started out as an art book idea, but very quickly came really back to me full force in the last 7 months as a series of small activations inside of the Black Cultural Zone, which Artists as First Responder is a member of, that looked like the building of shields. And what you're seeing right now is an image of these shields for protection that we were able to, really kind of like have be part of a live living protection ceremony at the Black Cultural Zone. So young folks across generation were able to come and take a piece of wood and to bejewel it, to paint it, to pray over it and breathe over it. And that these shields were actually being created as art pieces that you could either keep for yourself or that you could donate to folks who are fighting on the front line. And so that's part of what Artists as First Responder looks like. And I think we just want to go to a video of some of the work that I've done over the last 3 decades, but specifically inside of the portal that is known as Oakland, California. So Joel, if you could share that video, that'll be my time for right now, and we'll come back to more later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You need to hear the audio.
context. I mean, we just did the procession and marching down the streets of Oakland.
So much of the conversation around Black folks, around the situation here in Oakland, is around the struggle. All power to the people, and you know, this stuff all the time. And in the midst of that, there is joy, and there has to be joy. That has to be part of our movement building, our movement making, our art making, our creative genius.
And the legacy that you have built here in Oakland, with creating space and place for folks to really be able to shine their light, particularly for Black women. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for your work.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, next up we got Reefa One. I know Reefa been putting it down for quite some time, and there's a wealth of knowledge. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna be quiet at this point, and just kind of let you do your thing, brother, and go ahead and speak to the people.
Yo, peace, family. First, giving honor to the ancestors and the struggling elders that came before us, laying down the pathways toward freedom. I've been a practicing artist, muralist, activist for about 30 years now, here in primarily the Oakland Bay Area, but working throughout Northern California, in the Sacramento area as well. But I've done work nationally and internationally. And in the same spirit of my family and elders who participated in the Black Panther Party for self-defense here in the Bay Area, primarily San Francisco and Oakland. And the work that I do is using my skill set as a spray can muralist, as a hip hop artist, to speak to the needs and aspirations of African people during this time, during this struggle. In terms of the work and its relationship to combating police terrorism, this has been an ongoing thing. Although there was an upsurge with a lot of artists taken to the streets during the Breonna Taylor and George Floyd protest, this has been part of my political process in terms of communicating with the public and working with the community to create such murals for the past 20 years. And so putting the work out in the public to address such concerns was not new, but I think it was good to have a broader community of folks who usually don't tackle these type of subjects come to the forefront and engage the people and give people an opportunity to express themselves in a public forum. So it was a privilege to do that. Some of the work we've done during this time is creating points from the 10-point platform of the Black Panther Party that was written in 1966. And one of them, the one that's on screen now, is we want an immediate end to the police brutality and murder of Black people. And this was something done over 50 years ago, where conditions weren't as bad as they are today, but very bad. And now we have conditions that are far outweighing some of the conditions that were going on at that time, including the homeless situation. But the question I ask as an artist to the community is, what is our response going to be? If Black people had the political maturity over 50 years ago to organize an independent organization to address the needs of the people through survival programs and political education, what is our role today? And the role we take on with my organization as Aerosol is being a voice for the people and using our artwork as a means of political education.
Yeah, thank you for
thanks,
that.
Reefa. Appreciate you, brother.
And that's actually beautiful, because some of that conversation around what is, what's our role and what are we going to create is really what we're going to talk about today. So we're giving thanks that you have started that process with us already.
And look, we got more family on the line. You know what I'm saying? I definitely want to just keep it moving and pass it on to my family, Zakia, the shapeshifter. You know what I'm saying? Just this brilliant light this brilliant being, you know what I'm saying? Just powerhouse. It's just an honor to have you here with us, fam. So with no further ado, Zakia. You're still muted.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can. Yeah.
So I was saying peace and love, family. Thank you all, especially Sizwe Mizan, the Art Murmur Oakland Museum crew, for gathering this really sacred space together during such a powerful time. It's truly my honor to be with all of you today. I am coming to you live and direct as the granddaughter of Evelyn Light and Mary Jane Rose via Richmond, Virginia. I cannot say I was born and raised in Oakland, but I was raised in Oakland. My family moved here as part of the last of the Black migration from Virginia to San Francisco and settled in deep East Oakland, which is where I was raised and is where my family home is now. I consider myself a shapeshifter, doing just that, shapeshifting through the worlds of art, personal transformation, education, and spiritual entrepreneurship. But ultimately, I really consider myself an educator and a teacher. That's kind of what brought me to community, working in the traditional school system. I've also been an educator in non-traditional schools like Ile Omide, one of the last independent Black schools in America, shapeshifted through for-profit, through nonprofit. One of the co-founders of Impact Hub Oakland, along with the Shara. I also have co-founded a tech startup called Hack the Hood that engages young people of color in technology. I am a published author. I am a life coach. Currently, I am wearing the hat of, and it's a very long title, the Alameda County Arts Business Navigator with resources and quadruple multiple pandemics that we are facing. That work has completely pivoted into a Black-led, BIPOC-led strategy specifically around real estate acquisition, capacity building, and cooperative movements. So what does it look like to really connect the broader Black cultural ecosystem of Oakland? To Ashara's point, we know that art is the first responder when it comes to social change, as we can see from Rifa and Sanai's work. However, we often are historically not able to access capital. We don't necessarily want to reinvent the same systems of capitalism and patriarchy that are embedded in many nonprofit models. And so really working with creatives to figure out how we can continue to hospice the old world and midwife the new. In terms of my own creative practice, I consider myself a performing artist. I've released 2 EPs under the creative name of Shapeshifter, and my only performance with House Full of Black Women, which was actually part of the, I believe, a little bit of the clip that Ashara shared. And we've been doing a series of activations from in Deep East Oakland at Liberation Park, Betty Ono Gallery, Regina's Door, which are really about centering Black women, Black joy, and particularly as a response to child trafficking in Oakland. So, oh, sorry. Thank you. Sorry, some breaking up. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nah,
We're
yeah,
so
thank
glad
you,
that you're
fam.
here with us, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. The shapeshifter. I
Mhm.
love it. I'll go ahead and let you introduce the next artist.
The next artist activist. I actually have the privilege for this next artist activist of being their mom. And that is indeed a very big privilege. I want to introduce my oldest son, Sanai Alkebulan. He is an amazing spirit and person, but also an amazing creative in many different ways. And son, I'm gonna let you shine your light right now. Go ahead and tell them what you do, what you're about, and how you're inspired to continue doing this work to make change in our world.
Of course. Am I frozen?
Yes.
Yes.
But we can hear you.
Let me try to. Okay, well, I guess we're just gonna have to look at this frozen image of me looking awkwardly to the side. Thank you, Mom, for the introduction. My name is Sanai Alkebulan. I'm a multidisciplinary artist from Oakland, California. I wear also many hats. I think the the biggest hat that I wear. I'm the founder and creative director of Medal Future, which is a creative institution specializing in fashion design. However, over the past year, we've began to branch out into doing film and recently painting murals as well. And so, you know, I'm a product of Oakland's Black conscious art community. Rifa is my father. And so, you know, I went to Ileomade as a child, and just like all of the good, positive, progressive, creative stuff that I feel like our community has to offer has been funneled into my being, which is a great privilege. And because of that, I'm a strong believer in the concept of see a need, fill a need. And so with the pandemic and, you know, the kind of heightened visibility of police violence and racism in this country over the past, year, you know, I saw it as an opportunity to push the messages that, you know, myself and my family have been pushing for quite some time regarding police terrorism and things like that much further, because now there are these people who, you know, in many ways were not aware of what was happening, or, you know, were asleep. And I think that there has been somewhat of a mass awakening to these problems that have existed for a very long time. And so, you know, there's panels. Panels need work that reflects the or speaks adequately to the conditions of our people, and the panels get painted with said messages. You know, my fashion is the same way. When I started, you know, designing clothes, I was a big fan of, like, you know, Kanye West and stuff like that, which is a terrible thing to say in 2020. But I was like, wow, these clothes are cool, but Kanye doesn't care about Black people. And what if there was someone who made, you know, very modern, I don't even want to say modern, but, you know, just good looking clothes that really actively spoke to our condition, and the industry didn't really have that. So I made it myself, and that's where Medal Future came about. And here we are.
Nice.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Hopefully I can
Yeah.
unfreeze for next time.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, this beautiful panel that we have right here is a really powerhouse of collective folks. So I think it's time for us to bring you all onto the screen so that we can have this conversation. So as y'all know, this is November 4th. So we are the day after the elections of, in America. And, you know, some say it's politics, some say it's politricks. What do you think about that? What's your thoughts post-election? Where are you at with how the state of the world is, state of American politics is right now? Let's just put it on out there. What do y'all think? Politics or politics?
I'd love to dive in here. I think that we as a people, particularly people of African descent, need to take a long view, whether you're taking the long view of the 2020-year timeline of patriarchy and white psychosis, whether you're taking the long view of Christopher Columbus, who was a rapist and a colonizer, or the long view of 1619 and the initiation of the first slave brought to America. We have been under attack. This is not new. So it's continued politricks. But I think the power of 2020 is the fact that it's 2020, it's 2020 vision. The veil has been lifted, and African people have always been the canaries in the coal mine. And so now the world is waking up to the reality we've been talking about for thousands of years. So it's been politricks.
Indeed, indeed. Fire. Yeah. Fire. All right, what you got?
Well, I will echo and build upon what my sister Zakia is saying. You know, it's like there isn't any white savior. coming, regardless of who ends up being selected as the president. The way in which the electoral politics and the whole electoral college unfolds, and what we are looking at right now, it's been really fascinating to witness people's surprise at how close the vote has been. They're like, oh, I don't believe that even after caging children, raping women, building walls, that people still voting for 45. I'm like, do we not know that we live in Babylon? Do y'all really?
This is America.
This is America. Don't get caught slipping, yo. So I'm just, watching how this is unfolding. But I'm also being able to witness our comrades across the creative sphere, across genre, speak truth to power in terms of like who is gonna save who. Black folks gonna save Black folks. We have to be focused and clear about that. And what that means for us. But, just even out as it's unfolding in the local, environment in the Bay Area, in Oakland, we watched a shift happen last night. As I said, I'm here in Colorado and I saw the shift happening. So I'd be interested to hear what you all think about that piece as well, in terms of city council, in terms of some of the propositions that, hit the table, and affirmative action, bail, cash bail, and the craziness, I think, with the gig economy and how that shows up in folks who deliver food and folks who drive us, around.
Yeah, thank you for that, for sure. There are some interesting things that have happened at the local level, that I do definitely appreciate the sentiments around just recognizing that this is a veil that has definitely been lifted. And I think, even if you look at, a map of California about where people are voting differently, or even what that even means about what's being counted and all that kind of stuff, like it really is, a charade, what I'm saying? It's a facade and a charade of democracy. So I appreciate that you all have added that. Brief or Sanaa, either one of you want to jump into that before we go to the next question? I know there's some things burning.
I don't know. Sure, we're stunt doubles, so I guess I'll hop in on this one. Definitely is politics, a circus, if you will. And I think that with the work that I do, and with, I think I can speak for a lot of the people on this call, is that the work that we do is pointed inward at our own communities. I think a lot of people have this, oh, please, oppressor, stop oppressing us. And then the oppressor says no, and then, yeah, so well. And so, having a approach to Black liberation that is grounded in Black self-determination, and making sure that our own communities are protected and properly served, before having to deal with the stuff that goes outside of it. Because really it all starts at home, whether that's at a local level or at, a global level when it comes to spreading and creating mass culture. And so creating positive culture that uplifts the Black community is what I'm tasked with doing, and what I believe that a lot of the people on this panel are doing as well. So that's where we're at. I've never stressed about an election in my life, and I don't plan on doing that anytime soon.
Agreed. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Rifa.
I think it's an exciting time to be alive as an artist, to communicate with people and to use your creative voice as a beacon of light to inspire change. I think it's also a time in terms of these politics for Black people, in particular African people, to take a sophisticated approach to the current conditions. And like I said, when we look over 50 years ago, the Black Panther Party understood clearly that the Democratic and Republican Party were just two wings of the same reprobate bird. that we're dealing with right now. So in terms of tricks, I mean, this is a country that was designed based on genocide. So coming through the door, they have identified who they are. And this particular election or political atmosphere really does hit home with me, because we know that there's a movement out here built on the bodies primarily of Black men. The majority of the people being murdered by the state and being in prison by the state are Black men. And so it's important that we understand that there is a direct attack on our community, and there is a direct attack on both genders in our community. And we must organize critically as a people if we're going to be able to combat it. So the politics shouldn't be the petty bourgeois politics in the hands of the white male elite. The politics should be the power that we define as a community, as a nation, and how we critically organize our resources to get the change and seize the power that we deserve.
Agreed. Yeah. That actually brings me to the question I've been thinking about is, you know, a lot of times people think about art as being something that's separate, or that it's an add-on, or that it's an aesthetic. But and all of you on this call know that it's central to the movement, central to the work, central to our lives, central to the way that we transform. And so I wanted to ask y'all what y'all think about the role of land and power, and particularly land as a resource in that way, and power in your art. What is the role of land and power in your art?
I'll jump in. I think that's a really excellent question, Mizan. I think we all have to come to terms with the reality that even when we buy land, and land has been such a form of legacy building in this society, and even thinking about the land that we're on being stolen, but being used as through the capitalist system as a way for people to gain access to certain privileges. You know, so what does that mean then for us in our Black bodies to also engage in the buying and trading of stolen land, knowing that we are on stolen land? And at the same time, a lot of us wanting to have ownership because it creates access and legacy building and everything. I think in terms of my arts practice, a lot of my work has been very place-based. Even Amara says this with House Full of Black Women. Actually, Ashara, you were interviewing her lately. Like, the work that she does is very much geared to the place that she's in. It's not necessarily work that's supposed to be toured around. It's work that's very much embedded in the local ethos. And so I would echo that sentiment. And then I would also lift it up to the level, as I believe, as a woman of African descent who holds the mitochondrial DNA of the beginning of all, that I'm a global citizen. And so wherever I am, I'm entitled to be. And so I think that we also have to exercise that right, that we have the ability to also be fluid and mobile and make home and make art and claim that space wherever we are, knowing that claiming the space for us does not mean that we're reinventing the wheels of supremacy and capitalism.
I'm just saying I share to that. Yes, and thank you for bringing that to us. I want to call in our ancestors, our creative ancestors, Fannie Lou Hamer, James Baldwin, Octavia Butler, Prince, you know, into this space of understanding the power of land and the story of land. From my upbringing also pulls the thread into a lesson that my mother taught me when I was very young, that there are two things that acquire wealth: land and art, and that you should try to acquire and bring them close to you, if at all possible, in this lifetime. And so, you know, when I think about Octavia told us, you know, that this was coming, you know, that writer, that seer told us that it was coming and wrote it down for us and wrote the poetry for us and presented it to us to prepare us. And many of us know that we've been coming for this. We've been getting ready for this, and, you know, girding up our loins, as has been said, you know, in some scripture, for a long time, and that they came to prepare a place for us. So when I think about the role of land and power in my practice as a curator, as someone who works across genre and geography, with artists across generation as well. I think about the acquisition of story, the archiving of our story, and that the land and the water, because we live on planet water, hold all memory. And so bringing those conversations of earth medicine, indigenous wisdom into my practice as I create space and make space for all of us to sit in a space of both beauty and vulnerability. I think about, the utility of making sure that my feet are on the earth and that my hands are in the soil.
Woo, there's so much in that
like
one.
I
Woo.
say, folks need to sit with that medicine for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But I was inspired to ask a question, and just kind of put it out there. Just kind of, what do you want your, what intention and vibration do you want your art to resonate in the world? As we're thinking about energy and narrative and things of that nature. Like when we're doing this art, like, what is the intention? What is that vibration we putting out there for the people? Because the art is definitely beautiful, but I'm just wondering, just from the artist perspective, when y'all are stepping into that space of creativity, what was some of the intention behind the art?
And even if you want to tie that into that question around like land and power, because it really actually comes down to ideology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the ideology of your art? What's the ideology that you carry, that you want to manifest and grow in this world? Like you say, with the water, what's the water? What do you want? What's the memory you want to hold in that water? What's the seeds you want to plant in the earth? So we would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll hop in on that. I really like that part you added about water, because, on Earth, water connects all things and, takes kind of the shape of its container. And so a lot of my work and the philosophy behind my work has to do with our global struggle as African people, against white supremacy, which is a, pandemic in and of itself. And so, making sure that the struggles of Africans on the continent and, the struggles of Africans in the United States are connected, and, seeing those cultural throughways and through lines that we've carried with us throughout our, incredibly long history of humanity is a really big part. And I never like to think of my work as geographically bound. I mean, a lot of the clothes that I sell, have Oakland on them because it's the home of the Panthers. But it's not about the place. It's about the community that inhabited that place, and how that community has impacted this global movement that I think that all oppressed people can find some kind of power in. And so, that's that.
Yeah, thank you.
Good thanks. Good thanks.
Right on. I would say that I really like how you put that out there about ideology. I would say the ideology of the body of work that I do is coming from the perspective of being a Pan-Africanist, an unapologetic Pan-Africanist. And also, what you said, Sinai, just connecting our struggles to our brothers and sisters wherever they are on the globe. We are fighting the same Eurocentric pandemic wherever we are. And so as an artist, the message I want to resonate with the people is basically sowing the seeds of revolution, planting the seeds of revolution and change into the imagination of the people. And in that regard, the artist is a wizard doing magic. And to make the revolution and the love for the people just irresistible, because it's not just about us painting things to combat stuff that we're against. It's about us living. We are creative beings, and creativity is just like breathing. It's a part of our being. That's the way Mother Earth is. It is constantly creating and building and generating, and we're a part of that energy. And so being able to create art and remind brothers and sisters and participate with them to be a part of that synergy is very important. In terms of the land, we should control the visual landscape. H. Brown reminded us during the Black Panther Party that anything in our community that we do not control can be used as a weapon against us. And our visual landscape is critical. Our young people need to see images that are edifying, that inspire them to connect to their ancestors, to connect to nature, to connect to their mothers, to connect to their fathers, to connect to their brothers and sisters and family, and build community of love and have imagination to imagine a community in the world that we want that may not exist. And myself, under the leadership of my son here, created a mural recently dealing with what is considered Afrofuturism. And in that Afrofuturism, we're talking about the notion of Black African self-determination. And we centered the African family, the Black mother, the Black father, the Black child together to build. That's our first unit of organization, is that family. And as much as some would call that normative, this unit of organization has been attacked. And when you come through the average African community here in the Bay Area, you don't see many images of a family. So it's actually one of the most marginalized images, if you could imagine, in an African community. So it is up to us as artists to make sure that we speak and represent on the behalf of our brothers and sisters.
Yeah,
No doubt.
agreed,
Good thanks,
agreed.
man. I appreciate what you said about the wizardry, because that's kind of what I was getting at. It's kind of like the magic, right? The magic that we vibrate in the frequency, just from, you know, an idea being able to translate into something tangible. So, Zakiya, I don't know if you want to hop in, you know what I'm saying, ideology, inspiration.
That's shapeshifter there all day,
Yeah,
girl.
I
What you
mean,
what,
just kinda how
what
we-
alchemy you
you know
working
what I'm
on,
saying?
people?
Like, you know what I mean? Because you're right, it is the narrative shift. It is the, you know, walking through East Oakland, we definitely need to see something different out here on a daily basis. You know, actually big ups to Kufu, you know what I'm saying, for support with the planter boxes out here. You know, not only are we, you know, bringing food to a food desert, but we're trying to do it in a fresh way as well to just raise the vibration. So, you know, just little things, you know what I mean? Little things that can shift, little pivots. So, as a kid.
Hey, I would just really echo all the comments of the other speakers. I love the connection of the land, something outside of us. We are actually made up of the same components of the sun, the moon, the stars, and the earth. We are one with the earth. And also the notion of Afrofuturism, right? How do we bring that ancient wisdoms, those ancient technologies that have been with our families and lineages for hundreds of thousands of years, and also bring them into this 2020 timeline? What does that look like to connect that neo-folklore? And so in terms of my own ideology as a shapeshifter, it really comes from my spiritual tradition of Ifa. I'm initiated as a priest of Oya, and Oya means to tear. And a lot of my work is really about, whether it's at Hub or with young people, it's about tearing up the status quo. I'm not interested in doing anything that's about maintaining the norm. I'm not about new normals. I'm about transformation and that kind of arc. And a lot of my work and process is really rooted in that.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you. Actually, one little quick point. We have about 10 minutes left in this part of this conversation, and then we want to open it up to Q&A from our audience who have joined in from the Black Cultural Zone's YouTube channel. So those folks who are listening live online, if you have any questions or comments that you want to share with our participants that you want to have answered in this conversation, please do put them in the comment section of the YouTube, and then we will get to them shortly. So we carrying on. This is a magical conversation indeed. I really appreciate the element that some folks had mentioned around like the magic and the wizardry. And so let's just create our own alchemy wizardry, you know, our spelling with our words. Now, what's one thing that you know, if you could and as we do in our work every day. But if we could right now with our magic, just speak into existence exactly what we want to see for our communities, that we wake up tomorrow when the sun shines one more again on Oakland. What do we want to see for our people? And what do we want? How do we want our art to inspire that work? So maybe just give it a moment to really think about it. So we conjure this goodness with our words, with our sound, with our power. And what do you want to see and create as you wake up tomorrow morning? What do you want for our people? What do you want for humanity? What do you want for this world? And anybody who's ready, who's got it, word, sound, power, want to drop on them, go ahead.
I can hop in. I think that what I would want to see is a lot of love, and you know, that is almost the equivalent of wishing for more wishes. I think it was Kwame Ture that says that everything that we, you know, we must do out of an undying love for our people. And so, you know, when we look at our communities, and, you know, a lot of the problems that we have, obviously, you know, because of oppression, is a lack of love for self, a lack of love for one another. And, you know, if that were not the case, we would be able to, I think, claim space and agency and really, really hold each other together in a way that no outside forces could ever damage. And so that kind of undying love is really the glue that will hold our community together from here on out, and has been holding our community together, you know, in the past. It's not a new concept. So,
Ashe.
More love.
Yeah,
I hear you.
I hear you for sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sinai. You know, what we know is that artists respond at the edges of birth and death, on the front line of celebration as well as catastrophe. What we know is that it is our creative self that shows up to speak truth to power, but to also speak into what we know. Brother Rifa, you know, told a quote from our ancestor Tony K. Bambara, you know, the remembering, the calling of names, the calling of truth, the calling of wisdom, making that sound in the present day brings right to the Afro present what we are seeing for the Afro future as well. My sister comrade out of Pittsburgh, Alicia Wormsley, says that there are Black people in the future. And so what I want to speak into the Afro now is the presence of our genius and our wisdom into the now. And when I think about, you know, what it is that I want for my work, what I hope for my life is that my ancestors be pleased. You know, that is, so however that shows up, how that shows up as a curator, as an educator, as a grandmother, how it shows up, that I remember and call the names of my grandmother and hope that my grandchildren and great-grandchildren call my name with the same love and reverence that I have, you know, for my ancestors, that we continue to pull that thread because we are immortal. We are immortal, and the information is here for us, being revealed for us over and over again. So as we are living inside of this particular apocalypse, the veil being thin, even in the last, you know, couple of days as we've come off of this full moon and into All Souls Day, you know, the information that we are able to tap into, like knowing that we can call it magic, but it's really just the reality of our particular place in the space-time continuum and our willingness to like allow our spirit, you know, to be open to that information. So bringing that Afro-present genius into our space through our art practices, through our archiving, and really through our education of the next generation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I really appreciate that framing around the Afro now to be the Afro future, you know, and really the legacy that, you know, that the magic is really the science, you know, and the science of us claiming that space, of us continuing with our ancestral practices, with the legacies that we know to really create the world we want to see. So thank you for that, Ashara. Thank you very much, Mama.
Yeah. It looks like we have about 3 minutes left. So if anybody, about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then actually we're going to transition to a video. Like I said, we got a lot of intergenerational happening tonight. So we're actually going to transition to a video by DJ Cavum, who happens to also be Ashara's son. And we will be just looking at, really using art as this tool for transformation, whether it be through video, whether it be through painting, whether it be through dance and movement. However you choose to be creative, just tap in. Ashe.
Cavum being my first muse for artist as first responder. He absolutely came through my body, but he has been the teacher. So, yeah.
That's how it works, isn't it? Yes, that's the legacy indeed. Yeah. Before we transition to that, one more shout out to the folks who are listening live online, that after this video, we will be going to questions from the audience. So if you want to add some into the chat box in the YouTube video link, you please do so into the comments, and we will get to those questions after we come back. Are there any closing thoughts on this section around what you want to create? I want to hear from, I think, who did we not hear yet? Reefa, when you ready?
Sure. I'd like to see permanent Black institutions that speak to the self-determining needs of African people. We have to be organized, and I think organized with our culture, really calling forth the ancestors and unlocking those keys are so critical to us, because when we control our culture and we are organized, the world is ours. I mean, the world is ours. And the powers that be understand that. If you look at what the most dominant controlling things are for young people, it's the perversion of our culture. When we control our culture, when we are organized around our culture, we will have power and everything else that we need.
Yes, agreed. I think one of our teachers, indeed, Kwame Nkrumah, talked about organization decides everything. So as we are, being organized in the work, organizing around our culture, organizing our families, organizing our communities, organizing our thoughts, all from one line of the spectrum to the other. It's definitely a space for us to really create that transformation we want. So, ready for the video?
It's about
Zakia, you wanted to jump in? Go ahead.
Oh, can you guys hear me? I'm having some technical difficulties, so I apologize.
Okay.
It's what?
You are breaking up a little bit, but
is that better?
To jump in, you can.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for giving us the opportunity to express our Ashe Linu. Ashe, we know, is the ability to make things manifest. Linu is when we free them from the tongue. And so we know that part of our magic is actually saying things out loud. And because we're kind of zoning out, I would say, to the next 7 generations, I'd like to see a world in the next 7 generations where Black women are centered, knowing that there's a direct relationship between the way that we're treating the earth and the way that we're treating Black women. And when she is restored, when she is whole, when she is safe, when she is, I truly believe that the world will be whole as well. And I also think that we have to move beyond these notions that arbitrary borders carved within the womb of Earth Mother Onile are the way to live. That's an experiment that is a falsehood. Our people moved as tribes, and so we're moving with like-minded tribes. And so we're not going to move into this place of everybody doing the same thing. We have to start aligning ourselves with people who actually share our same values.
Yes, agreed. Yes, indeed.
Ashe, Zakia, thank you for that. Indeed.
I know you broke up a little bit, but I know that energy and power of really recognizing the connection between what we're doing with the earth and what we're doing with women, and Black women in particular, is crucial. It's like, it's a reflection, and even the way that the earth is responding, and where, the earth is shaking up and moving and changing. Be like, hey, y'all, come on now, treat me better. So I think we have to make sure that we're listening all the way around to the words of women, for sure. So thank you for that. Yes, yes. On that note,
yeah,
you want to introduce the
I
video?
mean, I think on that note, I just want to just sprinkle in ritual as well,
Yeah.
just strengthening our rituals. You know what I'm saying? That are bringing us. You know what I'm saying? That cultural practice of ritual. You know, however that may show up in your life. You know what I'm saying? It's just so important right now because that's also that conjure. You know what I'm saying? That consistent practice of just focusing in and centering, and you know. I just think the universe responds to that as well. So just sprinkling that out there in the conversation, and you know what I'm saying. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it.
So this video that's coming up, you want to introduce?
Yeah, I was actually randomly last week. I think I don't know if it came out last week, but I was just going through my YouTube feed and I happened to see it. I mean, I've always been a fan of DJ Cavum. I really appreciate and respect what the brother's doing with the music, and most importantly with his commitment to health and food security. And you know, I just felt it was appropriate since we have Mama Ashara on the line, just to connect and play the video. It's definitely it's on fire, man. I'm gonna let the video speak for itself, and maybe folks could debrief, maybe have some questions afterwards after the break.
In the week, Cali fires got us smoked out, can't see. Children stripped at the border, how can this be? They just want a piece of land just to go and grow a seed. Family colors like you and me. If we get strapped at the mall over shoe piece, we can march on the front line for that new piece. Lyrics always meant to teach the blind, that's what I see. City pockets full of flint. No solar panels in the hood, still paying rent. And the kids get sick, and that's a fact. And the feds still getting paid for all of that. How you supposed to grow in dirty water? I'm in the garden growing for my daughters. Water's life, plant a seed and follow. In the west, sprayed all over the hood. Never thought that could be good. Now the sheriff said you gotta move. They wanna build a highway in. There ain't nothing you can do, I'm telling. It's like a jungle sometimes. I see him killing the trees, corrupt land with the foreign disease, displacing animals. It makes it harder to breathe. Make you fall to your knees, reminiscing the beast. Before you sit down, praying on full directions. Using food stamps in the produce section. Get some land, harvest water, keep it moving. It's eye for an eye, and they got the show improving. See me manifest the heat, hold the heat in the night. Hopefully, roll tight, eat fresh, eat right. Watch what you say now, watch what you do. Watch what you say now, watch what you do. Like, yeah. My hands in dirt. Water the seeds and some sunbeams.
Drop a seed and feed a nation with that green gold.
Organic in the hood. Innovative culture. Chopping up the fresh green. I'm here to work.
Yes.
Give thanks. You know, I think that green hop. You know what I'm saying? It's funny always seeing the brothers show up and watching the youth go crazy. You know what I'm saying? When they go up to the schools and just, you know what I mean? It's just a narrative shift. I just really appreciate how we infuse the art into the whole food movement out in Denver. Shouts out to a lot of the work out in Denver as well. I had the privilege of going out there a couple of years back and, you know what I mean, connecting with some folks out there. So, you know, but my Oakland family, how we feeling? What's going on? Thumbs up. You know what I'm saying? All right.
I actually really love it was slightly intentional, but we talked about, the role of, everything happens as it should I say, but we talked about the role of listening to Black women and listening to women and how we're treating this earth, and then recognizing how this song was really about, that the seeds that we're planting and what we're cultivating, what we're nourishing, what we're revibrating to revitalize, and as we bring more energy back to the earth. So I just love how everything lines up as it should, and just really appreciating that. What did y'all think? Have y'all seen that video before? Y'all like it?
No, it's beautiful. I hadn't seen it before.
I've watched it a few times. Yeah, I've watched it a few times. I mean, but it really speaks to the information that, if we are willing, are able to draw down and to channel from our ancestors. And as Zakiya spoke about, her family migrated to California from the East Coast. My paternal grandparents migrated from a very small town called Parkin, Arkansas, up to Detroit, Michigan, where I was born and raised. Very much so. My paternal grandmother had 13 children. My father, who just turned 80 last month, is the last son of those 13 children, who's still on this side of the veil, and is very much, removed himself from the fact that his father was a sharecropper, and very much my father and my mother did all of this work in community so that my sister and I would not have to get our little nails dirty or anything. But my son, as a very young child, came through and knew that he was an earthling, and that it was his role to bring that information to us. And we see, what are the tools, what is the technology that we have had to return to? You have to know how to find the water, to capture it, catch it, recycle it, and have it for yourself. You have to be able to grow the food. You have to be able to grow dirt, to create soil, because it's been depleted on the planet. And so the relationship to saying, I want to be a farmer, that is part of my artistic practice. And the way in which he takes that information that he's channeling, because I didn't teach him how to grow food, he taught me. He's channeling it from his great grandfather. It's okay, now we're going to do this, and I'm going to take this bomb beat and I'm going to drop it into this school, and then I'm going to watch these, 10-year-olds jump up and down like they had a Dead Prez concert. I'm just it blows my mind. It continues to be okay, all right, young king, I see you. I see you, and I'm taking in the lesson. So, yeah.
I love it.
Okay.
I love that legacy that, there's so many legacies that come through us in so many different ways. Even sitting here on the screen, how there's two legacies of, Panther babies that came, you know what I'm saying? And then, legacies of chefs, Sisway's grandfather was a chef. My mother's a chef. And my second son is now cooking fire. He's a chef, just the legacies that continues to go through. And, the babies know, our bodies know, our DNA knows what we're supposed to do. And so when we're creating the world that we want to see, our bodies are we know it. We know what we need to do. We know what we need to do, despite all the distractions. Our bodies know, the mind knows, the spirit knows. So we manifest it all day. Thank you. Legacy for sure. Mm-hmm. That was actually one thing that I was thinking about as our question is so my background is, educational background is in public health, and a lot of the work we've done around community organizing has been around youth development. And so just recognizing the role of the connection of, this public process to how we create the conditions for transformation. And so from a public health lens, they always think about, looking at upstream causes and upstream So, what is the problem that's happening upstream that's impacting the masses on the downstream, right? And so the question I have for y'all is, how does your art, really connect to those root causes? How does your art really transform at the root level? We already talked about like the mitochondria, and then there's the mycelium. Like, how do we connecting to that root level of what we grow? And how does our art grow, from the root up so that it manifests? What are y'all thoughts on that?
Well, I think in many ways it's been said. I mean, I think there's this beauty of talking about water holding memory. We know melanin holds memory, the ancestral memories that we carry, that even if you don't know your ancestors, you're an expression of them. As Shara talked about with her son, as you all with your family, like it's already in you. And so I think cultivating our ancestor practices, right? Our collective ancestors as a community, but also our individual ancestors, drawing on those Afro-Indigenous cosmologies that remind us there is no such thing as death, energy only transforms. And so the reality is we have a whole army of spirits that are ready to support us, and we have to make sure we're feeding them, that we're pouring them cool water to drink, and that we're remembering that just as much as we're telling ourselves to get out there and vote or go out here and organize in the dominant feed. What is that work that we're also doing in the unseen realm? And if we're doing that, it's already embedded within us, and it's just going to be a natural extension of our arts practice, because our art, we're a holistic people. It's not separate. You go to so-called developing nations, or you go to the continent, people are artists and entrepreneurs and got about 6 or 7 jobs, and they don't even have they're not walking on laurels or like, I'm an artist. Everybody's an artist. You go to New Orleans, every child is like playing instruments, tap dancing with bottle caps. Like, the level of art and talent in us is just, it's unfathomable, right? And so we have to tap in that, but I think really tapping in from the power of the unseen world.
Yes.
Okay.
I know, Shari, you already talked about that veil being lifted in this time right now. I mean, that's, that's partly why we did our Experience Sankofa project this past Sunday, was really for us to recognize that the veil between the world of the living and the world of the past is that veil that gets thinner during this time. And so it really is a time for us to tap in, really is a time for us to really listen. Like, what are our ancestors saying for us right now? Even my shirt says, ancestors walk with me, right? Like, that's where we at. Like, the ancestors are walking, like, with it. And like I say, we know, our bodies know, our hearts know, our minds know. We just got to tap in and listen. So thank you for sure.
Yeah. And we do got one question that came in through the chat. Look, I think we might have this is the first one anyway. What role can art play in healing with truth, reconciliation, and reparations? And I can read it one more time. What role can art play in healing with truth, reconciliation, and reparations?
Yeah, I have thoughts on that.
Such an on-point question, because I feel like, creating new truths and exposing existing truths, as well as repairing the humanity and power and sovereignty of our communities, is at the very core of the work of the people on this panel. And connecting that to the last question about ideas about the earth and about the sacredness of the Black woman, but also about how integrated art is into our culture as African people. I mean, there's the idea of doing art for life's sake instead of art for art's sake. And so, if when we are creating, every single thing that has ever come before us and every single thing that will come after us intersects at this point to create one, little or big, piece of artwork. And so thinking about how all of those things come together and what that means for our people at a specific moment, I think is really where that truth of the future and the past, as well as us regaining our power comes in. I don't know if that made any sense.
Nah, I hear you. We hear you over here, bro. Dropping them gems. We hear you.
Yeah.
I mean, give thanks.
I have to just say that I love hearing Sinai talk, and I just want to do a shameless plug that I had the opportunity to be his teacher at City Slicker Farms back in the day.
You were my very first boss ever.
I love it. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he was the same person even then, right? Just in a smaller body, but you've always been so brilliant. Your mind, I love the way you talk, your poise, and to see your growth and to know your parents and to know what birthed you. It's just beautiful to be here with you. So I love watching Shara's son's music. I love your kids in the background. Like, there's just so much community, and that's what's going to get us through this, is each other.
1000%.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm thinking about, I mean, and Zakia, your daughter, who I've known since she was very little. And I remember telling you recently how when I would come to visit you, when I still lived in Denver and would come to visit, and I remember lying on the floor one day, my head hurt. She came and brought me all these crystals and laid them upon my chakras. And she said, "Oh, Nana, Shara, I'm just going to heal you with this amethyst." And I said, okay. She must have been, I don't know, 5. And she knew how to tap into that. And, I just in response to the question, I mean, what we know is that art has the ability to challenge structures that harm. This is what we know. I mean, that is courageous and righteous action, of the artist, and that we bring that forth. There isn't any movement on this planet, whether it be environmental, reproductive justice, economic justice, that is not rooted and fueled in creative practice. So if there wasn't no sign being held up, if there wasn't no rap, no chant being, come on, how do we learn this? We learn this by showing up, being on the streets, at the protests. What does democracy look like? We know the response to that. We understand call and response as it relates to poetry, as it relates to dance and movement, the work, that Zakia is also part of and has mentioned, House Full of Black Women and Regina's Door, and how there is this physical, creative movement, artivism that is happening on the corners, at the crossroads, for us to witness and to lay out the truth, really to unfold what is happening on our streets. And so that artwork, those offerings being given to those children, those young women of color, Black and brown women being trafficked on the streets, raped on the streets of Oakland, California, that these artists are bringing this, they're pulling the veil off. It's not only will we not look away, we also offer you blessings and love and water and fruit and any other thing that you might need, saying that we see you, that you are not forgotten. And the quote that we've seen many times over the generations, that a child who cannot feel the warmth of his community will burn it down. And it's so the artists bring that. The artists challenge the structures that harm. The poets speak for us. That's what I will say about, in response to that question.
Yeah, that's real. I so appreciate that you lifted up that word. Can you actually maybe talk a little bit about some of that work that House Full of Black Women is doing, and kind of how that role in particular around looking at sexually exploited minors, and how this trafficking of human beings, kind of the extension of the legacy of of slavery that we've experienced, and how you're working to interrupt that, a little bit more. I think the reason why I say that I lift it up is because, this role, like you said, of the artist to really to look at these root causes and to interrupt systems of oppression. I think that's the piece, is how are we interrupting these systems of oppression? So maybe if you or anyone else wants to speak to how their art does that piece.
Well, Zakia, you're the person who should speak on this piece, because it's been part of your practice for these years.
Yeah, It has. I also feel like you could add some great things in. Because I sit from a different lens. So I've had the opportunity to work with Amara Tabor Smith, and I don't know, for maybe the last 6 or 7 years or so, but specifically House Full of Black Women is really just a response to centering and restoring Black women. And what's so powerful about that project is the project that was, welcome back, Rita. It's a project that was geared to, one, not be about everything that you perform being seen, right? So it's like, oh, actually, funding world, you're going to pay us to meet and you're going to pay us to perform, and you don't even actually get to come to every performance. You don't get to see all of the work that we're doing because it's ritual work. It's not just performance for performance sake. That many of our rehearsals are us coming together, breaking bread, and having a meal at the table with other amazing Black women, just sharing. And that's what rehearsal looks like. And just being able to be part of that organic process. And then to have architects, cultural workers, educators, nurses, doctors, all these different people as part of this collective, which also isn't a one-off. It's a 5+ year project. Also saying we're not going to do new work every year and jump through your hoops. We're working on the same thing because this work takes time and it takes energy. And so really lifting up the work of Regina from Regina's Door. She is an abolitionist, a former survivor of trafficking, and really her brainchild of going out to the track and literally building living altars that of all the things that Ashara mentioned, to really recognize, one, during the pandemic that this work has gotten worse, right? So it hasn't gone down, trafficking and the sex trade, it's actually gone up during shelter in place, and the services are not there for us, our Black women. And so really being able to bring awareness around it. And again, also speaking to that self-determination, like we don't have to protest for that, right? You could just do something, right? And so I think as we have to analyze protest as a strategy and protest just for protesting's sake, and taking our power and our self-determination back as a community, knowing that we can build whatever we choose. Ashar, do you want to add to Houseful? Especially 7 days and 7 nights thing. The rest, I think, could be interesting.
Oh, I know we're coming up on time too, but I guess I want to say the pushback of Black performativity. Of saying you're not going to always see it, and you're not going to know when the episode is going to unfold, and furthermore, in connection to honoring specifically Black women and the planet, and the relationship of the Blackness, and that all of us were formed in the Blackness of the womb of our mother. And of the womb of the Black woman, honestly, all beings on this planet, all human beings on this planet. Part of the piece that I've been able to experience over the years with House Full of Black Women is Black women dreaming, and the work of being in dream space and of being in rest space, and collaborators Ellen Sebastian Chang and Amara Tabor Smith inviting us with a host of other beautiful Black women to actually take rest, and to see that rest, and to insist that rest be revolutionary, and that it be healing, and that it be known that Black women should rest and must rest in order for us to continue to lift up and hold the world in the way in which we do. But that there has to be an unraveling of the idea of working all of the time being this righteous work, this working all of the time and doing all the time and saving and constantly being in a state of exhaustion, that we insist that is not the way in which we get free. And so this freedom liberatory practice of resting, of being in a dream state for Black women is also been part of my experience with this group of artists, this group of movement makers, these choreographers, these playwrights, dramaturgs, lighting director, film director. So this, again, cross-sector, cross-media, cross-geography, intergenerational conversation that is being brought to us, this healing that is coming from the minds and the spirit and the wombs of Black women.
Yes.
Powerful,
Rest is reparations.
Man, the rest is so real.
Rest is reparations. It's real.
The rest is so real, just across the board. You know what I mean?
I know they have that concept, they're, folks would be like, the struggle continues, the struggle continues. I'm like, yes, but at some point the struggle actually has to end. Like, we really actually have to shift and not just keep struggling and going and fighting. We actually want it to end. We want to be well, we want to thrive, we want to rest, we want to build, we want to grow, we want to dream, we want to imagine, we want to love more, we want to hug more, we want to talk, we want to have the time to like envision new things. Like, the struggle doesn't have to continue. We can do something different. And so we're ready for that right now. We ready.
Y'all remember that song maybe 20 years ago on the Arrested Development album, Mama's Always on Stage? Y'all remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm old enough to remember that. It's like, Mama can get off the stage and get off the stage and go sit down over here, and it'll be okay.
Yeah.
It'll be okay for us to rest.
Yeah, sure will.
Sure.
Well, as we're coming up to the closing of our conversation, I just wanted to open it out to anybody who had any final thoughts or comments around, how we're using our art as a tool for this liberation work that we're doing. And then we're going to share contact information and one final video for us to close out with our day today. So anybody want to have some final comments? Reefer One, I know you skipped out for a second. Are there any thoughts that you had in your that you want to add?
Yeah, I apologize for my absence. My phone died, a little technical difficulty. But yeah, that rest. I got to recharge and I'm back. With that being said, I think it's important just for us to have a bird's eye view of some of the conditions going on with African people, just as a nation. I think too often, many of the what we may consider the progressive speaking points are coming from the status quo. And even organizations like, Black Lives Matter and some of the other things in that line of thought that is coming across on the mainstream airwaves and media. Does it speak from a position of power? Does it speak from a position of self-determination? Or is it a reactionary position, catering to the white status quo in terms of looking for recognition? Because let the truth be told, nobody in our village and community has ever been centered. The Black woman hasn't been centered. The Black man hasn't been centered. Black children haven't been centered. Our elders haven't been centered. Our people have not been centered. And it's important that we organize for our entire village to make sure that we are free. And too often, I think if we just focus on what some of the popular hashtags and talking points are, we can begin to miss some of those areas and have some blind spots. And if you look around the community right now, our young people are suffering as a result of our collective blind spots, Black boys and Black girls. And it's up to us to critically organize to make sure that we create pathways for their liberation.
Agreed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Definitely echoing that whole community approach.
Yes, thank you.
Short and sweet.
I know we think about, we didn't mention this earlier, but, kind of our perspective on this work is that, the transformation happens on, 4 different levels. On our internal level, like I think Ashara even mentioned this earlier, that the revolution is very personal, right? But it's also art happens on an interpersonal level with our relationships and how we treat each other. And then it happens on the institutional level, our institutions of our families, schools, politics, media, all of those institutions are there. And we have to transform those. And above and beyond, like they say, the bird's eye view of all of that is the ideology. Like, we have to transform on the ideological level. And so really being for us to center, if love, it really is at the center of the work. If love is what's guiding our revolutionary work, then how does that guide our everyday thoughts and actions? How does that guide our interactions with people when we come across them? And so really being able to really think about how we center, loving ourselves enough to center us in our thoughts and in our choices that we do in every single day. So yes, word up to all of that. Mm-hmm. Ashara, Zakia, you have closing thoughts that you want to share with the world?
I would just say, remember your breath You know, breath is the one thing that's voluntary and involuntary. We're involuntarily breathing, not thinking right now, but also we can still our breath, and to just continue to deep breathe as a political act, as a form of wellness, and as a way from tapping out of the cognitive overload and stress of the trauma, doom, and gloom. That is also something that weakens our immune systems and keeps us disconnected from our power.
Yeah, shame. And I would add 2 points. So one is the reminder that no one gets free alone. No one. That is not how it happens. So we need each other. And so to try to continue to remove the idea that we are individuals moving on this planet in some kind of way, and that we can be liberated without being engaged with each other. So finding belonging with each other in a way that allows us all to work toward our freedom. And then the second thing is to remember that small is all, and that it doesn't always have to be this large, grand, public display of power and of revolution, and that in that keeping with the revolution is personal. You know, taking one of the frameworks from emergent strategy, which is brought to community from our sister comrade Adrienne Marie Brown, that can you do this right here? Can you take the small piece and work within the magic of doing for yourself and for community what needs to be done? And I know in the practice of Ifa, there's a saying of, how do you eat the head of a rat? Because it must be eaten. And the answer is bit by bit. Take a small piece. What can you swallow? How do you transform that and transmute that into the beauty and the magic that you need to get free?
Yes, yes. Agreed. I really appreciate that you added the component around the small is all, because it really is the things that we do every single day that really help to transform, that really create the world that we want to see. I appreciate that. And it reminds me too, Zakia, of the element of our breath. At Spirit Works and with the Black Cultural Zone, we are working on a campaign. We breathe for those who couldn't. And it's an offering of community yoga and mindfulness practices that we host every Sunday that the Acoma Market is active. Right now, that's the first Sundays of every month at Liberation Park, which is the land that we have claimed as for the Black Cultural Zone. And we're activating with artisans and farmers and culture keepers and breathers who really want to help transform the world. And so every Sunday, first Sundays in November, December, and January, you can come and do a mindful practice with us if you like, but it's also something that you can do on your own, like every moment, like your breath is free, right? It's your time to really reclaim your own resilience and power through that breath. And so on that light, as we close out, I'm gonna invite y'all to take a nice deep breath in and exhale fully. And those of you who are tuning in, just take a deep breath in as fully as you can from the bottom of your feet all the way to the crown of your head. And as you exhale, just let your entire body just settle into this moment. And the next time you take a deep breath in, think about all that you are thankful for in this moment. Breathe it all in, all those blessings, all that goodness, all that life, that love, that power, that strength, this conversation, these beautiful people, this legacies, these ancestors that are walking with us each and every day. Breathe them in. And as you exhale, just let that breath settle into your entire body. Let their magic and power and gratitude settle into your blood, to your bones, to your muscles, down to your DNA. And as we breathe in that good, we breathe knowing that we are here for a reason, that we are here for divine purpose, that our ancestors are walking with us and guiding with us each day to create a new way so that the legacy of love and goodness shines on beyond us. One more breath in, together, and exhaling fully. We're giving thanks, y'all. Thank you, thank you. We are going to share our screen so that you can get contact information for all these amazing, beautiful people who are here, who have made this conversation happen. This has been a beautiful conversation. I am honored beyond doubt of the power and the magic and the inspiration that each one of you has provided in these conversations. It doesn't stop. Please get in contact with each of these wonderful artists that are here, also with the Black Cultural Zone, with Spirit Works, Sway and I, with the Oakland Art Murmur, and the Oakland Museum of California, who are together part of this Art for the Movement collaboration. We are so thankful for each one of you to show up, show out, continue to transform this world. Conversations for Change. The next one will be held on December 2nd, first Wednesday in December. Please look out for details on that. We are so thankful for Joelle and Lori and Emily and Taylor who have supported us on the back end, for the Oakland Museum. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. And as we close out, we're going to play one last video of our Experience Sankofa project. This is one of the creations of space claiming that we have created at Spirit Works. It is a living museum of African history from the continent to present day Oakland. Right now it's housed at Eastmont Mall, and will be opening back up to the public, inshallah, in February, when COVID allows us to really do this ritual to honor our ancestors in an even deeper way. Coming to you from Eastmont Mall, East Oakland. We are giving thanks, deep gratitude to each one of you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Sanai, Ashara, Zakia, Rifa, Spear.
Yeah, thank y'all. Like I say, it's been beautiful, man. There's so much wisdom drop. Ain't too much I need to say tonight. Be well, everyone. Blessings.
Peace.
On this journey, ancestors walk with me. Ancestors walk with me.
It's almost like a dreamscape.
For me, I feel like it was a big, eye-opener.
It was a powerful message.
I'm still kind of speechless right now.
The Sankofa experience is literally a living museum.
And it creates an opportunity for folks to kind of look at African history from the continent all the way through to modern day Oakland and see what's happening here.
So the living museum literally means it's alive, from actors. We have people embodying the roles of different ancestors along our timeline. We actually were intentional with hiring trained theater performing artists because we wanted them to really embody the emotion of what someone might have been going through at that time.
We start with the original woman. We know that life started on the continent, and then we have elements of different cultures that we get to represent. And so being able to see like there's a connection between each of these points of history that bring us to where we are to this modern day. One of the things that we also highlighted in this work was a lot of the resistance and the resilience that we have as a people. So being able to show that even though there were some challenges that we went through, that there's a heart and a soul and a power that we have as a people to be able to transform those conditions, to be able to survive through those conditions, and to be able to create something new. And so what do we experience with? We experience with the way that we sense the world. So the sights, the sounds, the smells, the textures, the emotions, and we have lights, we have smoke machines. Like there's all kinds of ways that we create the energy and the vibration of that time period. And so there's an amazing collective of artists that came together to create these installations.
The museum draws you in, you're actually in that time frame. It's an artwork, but it's an artwork that involves your participation. And as human beings, we crave that social interaction. So through this museum, we wanted to create that feeling and that sense of belonging to where it's not a separation between our history and our now or even our future.
Yeah.
But it's all a conglomerate and it's all energetically pushing us towards our greatness and towards our transformation.
I went 3 times, and you don't see things like that every day. Once you see it, it's just like, dang, like that's really what people went through, and then it like hits you and you're like, that's reality.
This will definitely bring light into the world to actually get the understanding of what we have to go through as Blacks.
It was just uplifting. It made me feel proud to be a Black African young man.
It was more detailed and vivid than I even imagined. It definitely made me want to just educate my children more, educate myself more, and just definitely never forget, and also celebrate where we came from.
The experience was able to tap back to really who they are and who they, you know, where they have come from and what their essence is, for them to really connect to the history that exists within each one of us.
We take about an hour to kind of unpack everything they might have seen, ask questions, and just really give people a full opportunity to engage in kind of what they just experienced.
The other intentions for the Experience Sankofa project was also to bring about racial healing. We recognized that a lot of the folks that were able to participate were not just folks of African descent, but it allowed for them to be able to have a deeper understanding about the histories and the struggles of our people, and really to be able to see us, to see our humanity, to see the greatness within us, so that there's a little bit more understanding.
And see and feel, though.
Yeah.
And I think that was the piece around making
That's
it.
why it's living. I mean, that's what makes it living, right?
Exactly. So we wanted to create a fresh way to teach, a fresh way to experience and share our stories as African people, and just a new and ingenious way to get the young people involved, man, because if they could see themselves into something, they're more likely to connect with it.
On this journey, ancestors walk with me, talk with me, put me where I ought to be. On this journey, El Haj, Malik, Shabazz, Sankofa, go and fetch what I left in the past.